Adobe just introduced the biggest update for Photoshop in quite a while. In summary, Adobe generative AI has gotten good, it's gotten usable, and it's gotten realistic for integration into the world of serious photographers. Here's what they just announced this week at Adobe Max in London. What I'm about to show you is now available in beta, and the good news is that Adobe's betas are not only for folks on the inside. If you have a Creative Cloud subscription, use Photoshop, you can get into the beta. Let's dive into what that looks like. So this is the Adobe Creative Cloud app that you have on your computer. When you bring it up, here's how you get to the betas. If you go to Apps over on the left-hand side and you click there, and then you look up across the top, there's this bar. If I go over here and I click the arrow to scroll over, I'm going to find this beta item. If I click on beta, that's where it gives you the list of all of the different beta pieces of software. So let's switch over to Photoshop. And the first thing I want to talk about is a quality of life improvement that we've gotten. Now I've got my Photoshop set to two different background colors here, so I can keep the beta and the released original version straight. So I've got the beta in this light gray color scheme. Now, if you've used Firefly 2 in the existing version of Adobe Photoshop, you know that if you want to create an image from scratch in Photoshop, it's not the most straightforward process. So this is one of the big usability improvements I think we've got here. Now in Photoshop beta and with the new Firefly 3, if I go in and I create a blank image, as I've done right here, you'll now see that I have a generate image tool down at the bottom below the image on my toolbar here. And if I click generate image, up pops this vivid interface. If you've used Firefly on the web and compared it to using the Firefly generative fill tool in Photoshop, you know that Firefly on the web gave you more options. You can choose an art style easily. You can, go for some prompts and inspiration. That wasn't possible in Photoshop until now. Now, what we've got in Photoshop is we have the ability to do some of these things. So I can go here to generate an image, and I could say something like business executive presenting financial information to board of directors. I can choose if I want art or photo. I'm going to say photo and tell it to generate for me. And so it's going to go off. It's going to use the new Firefly 3 image model, and it's going to create a resulting image. Let's see what we get here. And one of the things I think that I noticed right away with the Firefly 3 images is that, hey, the photos look more like photos. That's neat for something in an application called Photoshop, isn't it? As before, you get three different ones you can choose from. And so I'm going to scroll through them here, Anyway, we can pick our image and, it looks pretty darn good. And so the gap is closing between the interface of Firefly on the web and Firefly with the generative tools within Photoshop. So let's look at another option. So I'm going to go ahead and bring another photo up here. This is a photo that I captured as a selfie last weekend when I was at a beer event. Yes, that beverage I'm drinking is in fact beer. If you're curious what beer it is, drop me a comment down below and I'll give you the information on who makes a beer that's quite that color. And if you're really a beer nerd and want to follow me on Untapped, let me know that as well. Anyway, back to our background removal. So I generated this selfie here inside this beer bar, but as you can see, the background's not particularly compelling. Maybe I want to make it a little bit more interesting, or maybe I want to play with the fact that I've got this cool green beverage. So as with previous version of Photoshops, I have the remove background option. So I'm going to hit remove background down at the bottom. It's going to take just a couple of seconds and it's going to go through and it's going to pull out me as the subject. It's going to take out that background. If you look over on the right-hand side at our layers panel, you'll see that it does that as a layer mask. So it's not actually deleting any information. It's just giving you a layer mask. And because it does it as a layer mask, it's easy to make adjustments. Now, I think it did a fantastic job at the top here on my hair. Even though it's got these little spiky things, it did them really well. But obviously, as you look here kind of on the camera right side near my glasses, there's a couple imperfections. But because this is a layer mask, it's easy to fix. And so what we're going to do here is I want to get rid of these. Remember that white reveals and black conceals. And so making sure that I've got my brush tool set to black, I'm going to just, use my brush tool and paint out these imperfections. I could certainly get a lot more detailed with this, but this is good enough for right now. And so once I've taken care of those imperfections, now what I want to do is I want to replace that background with something more interesting. So now down at the bottom, you'll see I've got a generate background tool I can use. I've also got an import background. If I had a background ready to go, I could hit that. But hey, we're looking at generative AI today. So let's say generate background. Then it gives me a window where I can enter a prompt. So I've got a prompt that I put together here in advance. I don't know exactly what I'm going to get, but it seemed like it might be a good prompt given this this color, this beverage. And so my detailed prompt says I want a smoky, messy science lab with shelves of glassware, green smoke, and a window to the right. Let's see what we get here. I'm going to hit generate. It's going out using the Firefly 3 image model to generate a background here. As it does so, you're going to see it create a new layer over on the right-hand side. I love that Photoshop does all of this in layers so that we can edit and control it later. Well, okay, this is kind of interesting. I'm smoking hot or something like that, but let's see what the other two options are. I'm going to click over to the next one. Okay, and plenty of bottles in the background. Oh, that third one's interesting. I've got more different smoke there. I'm not really excited about any of these. I'd love to see some green stuff in that background to go with my green liquid I'm drinking. So let me edit my prompt. As before, I can go right down here and I'm going to say shelves of glassware containing green liquid. I'll hit enter to regenerate that. So it's going to give me 3 more backgrounds in addition to the ones that it already gave me. We'll see what these 3 new ones look like. Again, looking at these backgrounds, okay, this definitely has more potential. Okay, not interesting smoke design there. Okay, I think I like this one. That upper right's a little bit overexposed where that window is, but on the other hand, that light plays really well with the light on me as the subject here. So that's kind of cool. I've gone from drinking a green beer at a beer bar to drinking a green something in a science lab. What fun. So let's say you're working on this and you decide that you want to make a tractor. Now there's a couple ways you can do that. One way you can make a tractor is you can go get some Lego and build yourself a Lego tractor, as I did recently. Although we're going to do this in Photoshop because I'm the tech photo guy, not the Lego photo guy, although maybe that's a domain name I should register until I get into trademark trouble. But anyway, let's talk about generating a tractor. So I'm going to create a new image here. So I've got this blank image here. I'm going to hit generate image. I have got another prompt that I pre-prepared. I'm going to put this into the interface here. I'm going to go with a green toy farm tractor driving to the right, towing a yellow trailer. I'm going to say I want this to be a photo, and let's see what Photoshop and Firefly come up with here. So it is now generating a image through Firefly, and then we're going to get into something entirely new. Okay, well, is in fact kind of a toy-looking trailer. Toy-looking tractor with a trailer. That's interesting. There's another one, but what if I want it to look like Lego? I could edit my prompt. Maybe I'll try telling it I want a green Lego toy farm tractor, and we can find out what it does with that, see if that actually makes any difference, or if Lego as a trademark is something that kind of gets ignored or pulled out by the model. Okay, that doesn't look particularly Lego-like to me. I'm going to take a look at another one, and yeah, I mean, decent little toy tractor things. It's interesting I said it should be driving to the right, and only one of the three is. Perhaps it didn't quite understand that. But what if I want to make it look a little more like my Lego? What if I can give it a reference image? So this is something entirely new with Firefly 3. I can give it a reference image. I can give it an image that I already have and tell it, use this to generate. So I could have done this when I started my image generation from that interface, but I can also go down to the bottom here and pick it and say, choose image for my reference image. And then I'm going to say Lego tractor, because I happen to have an image of a Lego tractor that I took previously that you can see right here on screen. And so I've just loaded this in, and now I'm going to tell Firefly through Photoshop to generate this same thing, but with my Lego image as a reference. Will it look more Lego-like? We're going to find out here in just a moment. Interesting. A little bit more. Yeah, if you look at kind of some of this, mechanism here between the trailer and the tractor, we've got some there. This definitely looks more kind of chunky and Lego-like here. And this one, our trailer does. But it's definitely interesting. You'll see we've gained these, the smokestack here, very similar to my photo. And so I did this with a toy image, but if you're a wedding photographer with a given style, you can use your own photos as reference images. If you have a lighting pattern that you want to match, you can use a lighting pattern as a reference image to tell it to generate something that matches that pattern. And so being able to generate things using that reference image is a big new win. Now, one of the other things that's interesting is when you find an image that you like, you can use generate similar, which you'll see over here on the right-hand side. If I hover over one of these variations and I click my little three dots, generate similar will generate more images like this one. I can also remove the background right from here as a shortcut. And so, whereas the older tools in Photoshop were a little crude or broad, now I get a lot of nuance in what I can do with these. So let's continue on, and keep in mind that with the Adobe Firefly model, Adobe is doing this within their ethical boundaries for artificial intelligence. They're doing it with the content credentials, kind of digital watermark or AI provenance feature built in. I'm going to drop links down below if you want to read more about those things, because those are pretty darn cool. Now, one other thing that I want to show here that's in this Photoshop beta has nothing to do with generative AI, but has everything to do with finally giving us a tool we've been waiting for in Photoshop. You know what image tool I use a lot in Lightroom? The adjustment brush. And I've always wondered, why is there not an adjustment brush in Photoshop? Well, there is now. Let me bring up another image just to show you how that works. So here I have got a photo that I captured of Merlin, our little lab puppy, about a week ago or so at one of my favorite breweries. And it's an okay photo, but it's not ideal. Maybe, I'd love to bring out a little more shadow in him as a black lab. Photographing him is interesting. Maybe give that beer a little bit more pop. And there's a variety of ways I can do that. But hey, we're showing off the adjustment brush. So let's grab the adjustment brush tool. Now, as you'll see up at the top, you get the options for the tool. When you drop this down, you'll see that the types of adjustments that you can make are things that you would expect. You can do brightness and contrast adjustments, levels, exposure, channel mixer. You can mess with the hue and saturation. So let's go ahead and say, let's saturate this beer maybe a little bit more because I want to give it a little more pop. And I've grabbed my adjustment brush. I'm going to go and bring it over. I'm going to increase my brush size a bit here. And as I start painting on, what you'll see is I've painted this on and it's increasing the saturation a little bit, but it can be hard to see. I like going over with any tool and kind of, taking it to 11, or in this case, taking saturation up to 100. And so as I paint this on now, what you're seeing is it's really saturating the oranginess in that beer. Now I also have, some presets. I can adjust the hue while I'm at it. If I want to go, maybe I want to make a green beer to match that other one I was drinking, I could do that. The other thing I could do though is maybe I want to, create a new layer to adjust the exposure. There we go. Maybe I want to bring up the exposure on the dog a little bit, bring up the exposure on his face. And I can do that with an exposure adjustment layer. Now what you'll see is it's at +1. I can back that off a little bit if I want, but by increasing the exposure, I'm bringing a little bit more dog, getting a little bit more dog over time as he grows. I'm bringing a little more detail to my dog here with the adjustment brush. So I'm excited to see that available in Photoshop. As I said, that beta is available today. You can go into your Creative Cloud app and install that just like I showed you. I'm looking forward to seeing where this is going. This is going to come out in the shipping production version of Photoshop later this year. And if you want to stay in the loop in that, I would definitely head over to techphotoguy.com, drop your email address right there so that you can stay in the loop as I explore that more, as I share more tips and tricks, as I talk about generative AI, not just the technical side, but also how it's impacting the business and the creative side of photography. And I can't wait to share more of that with you. So until I do that, take care.